Evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. It's Monday, the 15th of July, and my name is Brian Liddy. Apologies for the late start to tonight's show, but we'll begin with our routine Ukraine update, and today is day 873 of the war in Ukraine. Ukraine's Army General Staff reported intense Russian attacks on the Pokrovsk area of the Donetsk region on Sunday, creating the hottest situation along the front line as the invaders pushed for gains. In an update, the General Staff said, in the Kharkiv region, Russian forces attacked positions in the Hilboki and Vochansk districts 3 times, the update said. On the Kupiansk direction, the enemy was also repulsed 3 times near Pishani and Stelmakiva, suffered losses and withdrew. In the Lyman area, there were 8 Russian assaults in the area of Makivka and Grevkivka. Other attempted advances took place around Seversky, Kramatorsk and in the Toretsk area. It was tense with locations near the north and New York under attack. Apologies for my mispronunciations there. The Institute for the Study of War think tank said Ukrainian forces had recently regained lost positions near the Vovchansk northeast of Kharkiv city, while Russian forces advanced near Adivka to the north of Donetsk city. Russia's defense ministry said its forces had taken control of the village of Urozhain in Ukraine's Donetsk region. Ukrainian bloggers also said Ukraine's forces had relinquished control of the village southwest of the Russian-held city of Donetsk. Ukraine's military said fighting was still going on. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces said Russia had launched 18 attacks on Urozhain and other nearby localities. It made no mention of the village in a later report. Deep State, a popular Ukrainian military blog, reported Urozhain's capture on Sunday, saying Russian forces had launched mass assaults on the south of the village. It described the loss as a defence collapse, the cause of which would have to be investigated. Returning to Ukraine from the NATO summit in Washington, President Zelensky touched down in Ireland to meet with the Taoiseach Simon Harris. Zelensky's office said on social media that they had discussed support for Ukraine, cooperation in demining and cybersecurity. China and Russia's naval forces have begun a joint exercise at a military port in southern China, according to the official news agency Xinhua. It comes a few days after NATO allies called Beijing a decisive enabler of Russia's war against Ukraine. Chinese Defense Ministry said forces from both sides recently patrolled the western and northern Pacific Ocean, and that the operation had nothing to do with international and regional situations and did not target any third party. President Zelensky said that Russia used more than 700 glide bombs, more than 170 attack drones and almost 80 missiles against Ukraine last week. And now the update or the latest from Israel and Gaza. At least 38,664 Palestinian people have been killed and 89,097 injured in Gaza since the 7th of October, the Gaza Health Ministry said in a statement. An estimated 80 Palestinians were killed and 216 injured in the past 24 hours alone. In Deir al-Bala in the central Gaza Strip, the municipality issued an urgent statement saying it was no longer able to provide 700,000 people in the area with drinking water after running out of fuel. UNRWA's head, Philippe Lazzarini, said in a post on X on Monday that the agency's headquarters in Gaza was flattened after being turned into a battlefield during heavy fighting. Another episode in the blatant disregard of international humanitarian law, he wrote. In the southern Gaza city of Rafah, the main focus of Israel's offensive since May, residents reported renewed fighting on Monday. The military also reportedly intensified aerial and tank shelling in central Gaza in the Al-Burij and Al-Maghazi historic refugee camps. David Lammy called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza during his visit to Israel and the Palestinian territories as the UK's Foreign Secretary. Gaza's health ministry updated the death toll from an Israeli airstrike on a school in central Gaza on Sunday, saying it had increased from 15 to 22. The Abu Araban school was run by the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, otherwise known as UNRWA, and housed thousands of displaced people, a civil defence agency spokesperson Mahmoud Basai told reporters. Next item is Stephen Flynn MP has confirmed the SNP will table an amendment to end the two-child cap if the Labour Party fails to include the measure in its programme for government this week. In a letter today, the SNP Westminster leader urged Anas Sarwar to instruct Labour MPs in Scotland to support the amendment. Stephen Flynn said the two-child cap is pushing thousands of Scottish children into poverty and ending it is the bare minimum required. The SNP said scrapping the cap is the essential first step, but the Labour Party must then take further bold action if it is to eradicate child poverty, including matching the SNP government's Scottish Child Payment UK-wide by raising the child element of universal credit by £26.70 per child per week across the UK. Commenting, SNP Westminster leader Stephen Flynn said, "The two-child cap is pushing thousands of Scottish children into poverty, and scrapping it is the bare minimum the Labour Party government must do if it is serious about tackling poverty." He went on to say, "I urge Keir Starmer to include it in his programme for government this week, but if he fails, the SNP will lay an amendment to abolish it immediately. It is shameful and it must go now. For every step Scotland takes forward on child poverty, Westminster cuts are dragging us back." The moment Keir Starmer stepped into Downing Street, the Tory two-child cap became the Labour Party two-child cap. I urge him to do the right thing and scrap it without delay. A public inquiry into the activities of about 139 undercover officers who spied on more than 1,000 mainly left-wing political groups since 1968 has been told that at least 5 undercover police officers spied on the anti-nuclear movement during a period when it was posing a significant challenge to government policies. One was sent to infiltrate the Women's Peace Camp at Greenham Common after she was told by a superior that Margaret Thatcher, the then Prime Minister, wanted to know what the Greenham women were doing. The inquiry, led by retired Judge Sir John Mitting, also heard allegations that information gathered by the undercover officers was exploited by Thatcher's government to undermine the anti-nuclear activists just before a general election. The surveillance of the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, or CND, and allied groups was stepped up when they grew enormously in the 1980s. Membership of the CND ballooned from the low thousands to more than 300,000. They used non-violent methods to pursue their objectives. The activists feared the outbreak of nuclear war with the Soviet Union during a dangerous phase of the Cold War. They opposed the Thatcher government's plans to develop the UK's arsenal of nuclear weapons and permit the stationing of US nuclear missiles in Britain. Reports gathered by the undercover police officers were routinely passed to the security service, MI5, which was mounting extensive surveillance of the anti-nuclear campaigners. The deployment of the undercover police officers was revealed in detail on Monday as a large cache of surveillance reports were disclosed at the inquiry. They spied on local groups in, for example, Hampstead and Hackney in London, as well as national meetings. Giving evidence, Kate Hudson, CND's current General Secretary, said the extent of the infiltration of CND was truly shocking, completely unjustified and anti-democratic. During the 1980s, there was considerable controversy about the state surveillance of CND after Cathy Massiter, a whistleblower who worked for MI5, revealed that the security service had used telephone tapping and informants to spy on the movement. Thatcher's government argued that the surveillance was necessary as CND was allegedly controlled for influence by communists and subversives, a claim that MI5 had by 1985 concluded was largely unfounded. One of the most well-known anti-nuclear campaigns was run by women who camped outside the Greenham Common Air Base in Berkshire to protest at plans to site American nuclear weapons there. They were infiltrated between 1983 and 1986 by an undercover officer who used the fake name of Lee Bonser. She had said that a police superintendent approached her to go undercover, telling her the then Prime Minister wanted to know what the Greenham women were doing. She added that she was asked to help the police find out. Forgive me. The Home Office has apologised to asylum seekers granted leave to remain in the UK who then had their decisions retracted. In some cases, applicants were sent resource permits before being told by officials to cut them up. Charities said they had seen a number of cases where people celebrated getting leave to remain and believed they were safe at last, only to be told days or weeks later that a mistake had been made. Officials declined to say how many people had been affected by this error. In one case, an asylum seeker was jubilant after receiving a letter from the Home Office officials stating, "Your claim for asylum has been successful and you have been granted refugee status and 5 years permission to remain in the UK. The asylum seeker that he was so happy to receive this letter. He and his family had been left in limbo for 2 years, not knowing what was going to happen. But then a few weeks later, after getting his refugee status, he received another letter saying that the Home Office had made a mistake and that I had to destroy the biometric residence permits they sent him." The second Home Office letter, marked official sensitive, stated, "Unfortunately, an incorrect grant of leave has been given due to a technical fault in our system. The case will therefore need to be reconsidered so that we can amend this." Lou Calvi, the director of charity Asylum Matters, said that they were aware of multiple cases where grants of leave had been withdrawn by the Home Office because they said they had made a mistake. "It's sheer torment. It has devastating consequences on people that have often been waiting for years for their decision, only to then have the rug pulled out from under them." He went on to say the chaos in government processing and decision-making is palpable. The new government urgently need to rebuild the basic functions of our asylum process. Campaigners have called on Sir Keir Starmer to take quick steps to fix the broken Home Office settlement scheme for EU citizens who were in the country before Brexit to avoid a repeat of the Windrush scandal. The grassroots organisation, the 3 Million, and 75 other organisations, including immigration law firms, civil rights groups and NGOs, have written to the Prime Minister seeking a wholesale review of the Home Office's implementation of the Brexit Withdrawal Agreement, the WA. The EU settlement scheme was supposed to guarantee EU citizens' rights, but has already led to a government defeat in the High Court. Andrea Dumitraci, the communications manager at the 3 Million, said, "If the Prime Minister is serious about repairing the relationship between the UK and the EU, then he has a golden opportunity to do so by taking quick steps to fix the EU settlement scheme. We believe this would be a significant show of goodwill towards the EU, relieving tensions and opening the door towards a better relationship with a close ally." Dumitraci is one of the co-signatories of an open letter to Starmer, also signed by the London law firms Kingsley, Napley and Bindmans, the EU specialist Professor Elspeth Guild of Queen Mary University of London, and NGOs and civil rights groups including Rights of Women, Settled, Roma Support Group, Refugee Action and In Limbo. The demands include efforts to clear the 137,000 strong backlog of EU citizens still waiting for a Home Office decision on their status. They also want the government to abandon the Home Office's decision to expire UK residence cards held by some EU citizens on the 31st of December. Signatories also raised the long-standing problem of the Home Office's decision to issue digital-only status of the right to live, work and retire in the UK, saying it had already proven to be seriously compromised and not fit for purpose. They want the government to provide reliable documentation to EU citizens to enable them to prove beyond doubt to employers, landlords and local authorities dealing with social welfare benefits that they have full rights guaranteed under the WA. Campaigners have long demanded a physical card in addition to the digital system, which requires border officials, employers and councils to log into the Home Office website to verify a digital number issued to any of the 5.7 million EU citizens legally resident in the UK post-Brexit. Donald Trump's criminal case on charges that he illegally retained classified document at his Mar-a-Lago club was dismissed today after the presiding judge sided with the former president and ruled that the special counsel who brought the prosecution had been improperly appointed. The stunning decision by Eileen Cannon, the US district judge appointed by Trump, found that the appointment of Jack Smith as special counsel violated the US Constitution, as he had not been named to his post by the President or confirmed by the Senate. Cannon effectively ruled that there was no statute that authorised a special counsel to bring charges in the Trump case, and previous court rulings, including by the US Supreme Court in the landmark Richard Nixon case, were not binding on her decision. Because Special Counsel Smith's exercise of prosecutorial power has not been authorised by law, the court sees no way forward aside from dismissal of the superseding indictment, Cannon wrote in the 93-page decision. The ruling casts aside previous court decisions that upheld the court of special prosecutors stretching back to the Watergate era, and removed a major legal threat to Trump on the opening day of the Republican National Convention, where he is set to accept the GOP nomination for president. Prosecutors will almost certainly challenge the ruling at the US Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, and could ask the appeals court to reassign the case to a different federal judge in Florida if Cannon's decision is overturned. Whether the 11th Circuit overturns Cannon could be as significant as the ruling itself. If Cannon's decision is reversed, and a new federal judge takes control of the case, it could breathe new life into the case, even if the case may not go to trial for years. Trump was indicted last year with retaining national security documents at Mar-a-Lago and obstructing the government's attempt to retrieve, including by partially defying a grand jury subpoena, ordering him to return any classified documents to the Justice Department. Trump had pleaded not guilty. At issue is Trump's argument that the special counsel position was not a position created by statute by the Constitution, and therefore any any actions he took with that prosecutorial power were not authorised by law. Prosecutors contended in response that the judge did not need to consider whether to toss the indictment since Smith was an officer deputised by the Attorney General to prosecute the case as allowed under the Appointments Clause of the Constitution. The judge sided with Trump's position. Cannon found that the Appointments Clause did not allow Garland to appoint a prosecutor effectively working as something tantamount to a US attorney, a job that requires Senate confirmation, and the only remedy was to dismiss the indictment. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has told Fox News that he will announce his pick for his vice presidential running mate at the Republican National Convention today. Kenyan police say they have arrested a suspected serial killer who has confessed to murdering 42 women, including his wife, and dumping their dismembered bodies in a Nairobi rubbish tip. Since Friday, 9 butchered bodies, trussed up in plastic bags, have been pulled from the dump in the site in the Mukuru slum area in the south of the capital. The Acting Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanya, said the 33-year-old suspect, named Collins Jumaisi Kalusha, was arrested at about 3 a.m. on Monday near the Nairobi bar where he had been watching the Euro 2024 final. The head of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, Mohammed Amin, told reporters, "We are dealing with a serial killer, a psychopathic serial killer who has no respect for human life. We are dealing with a vampire, a psychopath." He said Kalusha claimed the murders took place between 2022 and last Thursday. The suspect was tracked down after analysis of the phone of one of the victims, Amin said, in a joint operation by the DCI and the National Police. As officers swooped, he was in the process of luring another victim, Amin said. Officers searched the suspect's one-room house, located just 100 metres from where the bodies were found, and discovered a machete, nylon sacks, rope, a pair of industrial rubber gloves, a pink female handbag, and female underwear. Kanya said autopsies on the victims discovered to date would be carried out today. 8 have been confirmed to be female. The Scottish Government has said that it is investing around £50 million a year into a portfolio of strategic research to ensure that Scotland maintains its position at the very cutting edge of advances in agriculture, natural resources and the environment. This will continue to build an evidence base to support policy needs in the environment, natural resources and agricultural portfolio, and contribute to the delivery of a national performance framework. The Scottish Government say that for the Strategic Research Programme 2022 to 2027, the vision is to support research that is relevant, respected and responsive to Scotland's environment, communities, its peoples and the rural economy. This vision places the science that we invest in at the heart of Scottish society. The scientific needs of the environment, natural resources and agricultural portfolio are motivated by 3 overarching drivers: global climate and natural crises, EU exit and economic growth, and well-being. The programme covers a wide range of topics and are presented under 5 themes. Every theme is expected to deliver research and evidence which will help to meet the challenges posed by one or more of the high-level drivers. The 5 themes are £31 million in a strategic research programme, or SRP, supporting 5 main themes of research: plant and animal health, sustainable food system and supply, human impacts on the environment, natural resources, rural futures and horizon scanning. There's £7 million in 5 current centres of expertise, forming an important policy research interface on the issues of water resources, animal disease outbreaks, climate change, plant health and knowledge exchange. These draw not only on the knowledge and skills of researchers within the main research providers, but also those of researchers from other institutions and universities across Scotland. There's also £8 million in underpinning national capacity at the main research providers, ensuring key assets which support our research are maintained and their long-term sustainability secured. A new fund for medium-term research, up to 3 years, is responding to new unforeseen policy needs which emerge after initial commissioning periods. Initial funding in 2022 to 2023 will be around £200,000. New figures released by Made UK and BDO found that between March 2023 and 2024, 10,000 new manufacturing jobs were created in Scotland, despite a backdrop of the UK as a whole losing over 34,000 jobs in the sector. The Scottish Government say that they have worked to support Scotland's manufacturing sector through the Making Scotland's Future a Recovery Plan for Manufacturing agenda, which prioritise greater sectoral collaboration, access to stronger supply chains, identifying transformative solutions, and developing an enhanced workforce. Commenting, SNP MSP Jackie Dunbar said, "The SNP government has been working hard to support Scotland's essential manufacturing industry to ensure that the sector is equipped and ready to play a role in growing our economy of the future." She went on to say 10,000 new jobs being created across Scotland is very welcome and a sign that our manufacturing industry is going from strength to strength, despite the UK as a whole struggling. It is clear that the work of the Scottish Government is having a concrete impact on the creation of well-paid jobs. The SNP will continue to prioritise driving economic growth to ensure we have the resources we need to fund our public services, and at the heart of that will be continuing to support our workforce to ensure that they have the required skills. A century on from his gold medal winning triumph at the 1924 Olympic Games in Paris, Scottish sporting hero Eric Liddell has been awarded an honorary degree from University of Edinburgh. His achievements, both on and off the track, have been immortalised in film and cemented in Scottish sporting history. Liddell represented Great Britain in athletics, was capped for Scotland in rugby, and worked as a Christian missionary. A former graduate of the University of Edinburgh, Mr. Liddell was awarded a posthumous degree of Doctor Honours Causa by the university's Moray House School of Education and Sport. Mr. Liddell was nominated for a posthumous honorary degree by the University of Edinburgh's Chair of Sport, Professor Grant Jarvie. The award was given in recognition of his contribution to sport and humanity and in celebration of his continuing impact a centenary after his historic success in Paris. Mr. Liddell was represented at the ceremony in the university's McEwen Hall by his daughter, Patricia Liddell Russell, who accepted the award on his behalf. Mrs. Russell, aged 88, travelled from her home in Ontario, Canada, to attend the ceremony. Mr. Liddell, dubbed the Flying Scotsman, won the 400 metres at the 1924 Summer Games in a world record time of 47.6 seconds and a bronze medal in the 200 metres. He refused to take part in the 100 metre heats, which were held on a Sunday in line with his Christian beliefs. This act of faith and principle helped inspire the 1981 Oscar-winning film Chariots of Fire, which told the story of his and other Olympic triumphs. Mr. Liddell enrolled for a BSc degree in pure science at the University of Edinburgh in 1920 and graduated 4 years later on the 17th of July 1924, just 6 days after winning gold, in the same hall where his honorary degree was conferred a century later. Following his athletic career, the father of three worked as a science teacher and later served as a missionary around the world, most notably in China. He was held in a Japanese internment camp in 1943, where he died on the 21st of February 1945, aged 43. Professor Grant Jarvie said, "Eric Liddell is one of Scotland's most celebrated athletes of all time. When inducted into the Scottish Sports Hall of Fame, he topped the public vote as Scotland's most popular sports person. A century after his Olympic success and graduating from the University of Edinburgh, what Eric Liddell represents is the best of all of us and the promise and invitation of what we could do to help others." He went on to say, "As we look forward to another Olympic Games in Paris this summer, it is entirely deserved that we honour this remarkable person's contribution to sport and humanity with this honorary degree." Well, that's it for this evening, but before I go, I just want to remind you that at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on the generosity of our supporters. Our programmes will always be free to view. However, if you can afford £5 per month, please do consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. To everyone who has donated and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment, we thank you very much. Right now, we urgently need to increase our donations if we are to be able to pay our bills. We face costs of over £4,000 every month, but our income is just over £2,000 a month, and we are now facing mounting debts. Please donate whatever you can afford. And we appreciate that for many, £5 a month is unaffordable in this cost of living crisis, which is why we will always be free to view. However, we are wondering out loud if there might be 20 or so supporters who could afford £100 per month. It's a big ask, but if so, please do get in touch. But in the meantime, goodbye and thank you for watching.